Good morning, everybody. Wednesday, September 20th, 8 a.m. This is our DDA meeting. Great audience today. This is awesome. Roll call for today. We are missing Sam Gill, Jeff Margolis, Mary Liz Curtin, and that's it, right?
That's it, yeah.
Okay. So do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I will make that motion.
All right.
I'll second.
Thank you. We got a presentation from Jill Beam on our master plan. Jill, if you want to come up.
1 second. Yeah, we're going to add that to the agenda as
Yep.
the
Oh, yeah, we're adding that to the agenda.
morning.
Oh, hi. Morning.
You didn't take a vote on the consent agenda, by the way.
So. Do we have a vote for the consent agenda?
Aye.
Aye.
And then Joe was abstaining because he was not here for
Yeah.
to approve the minutes.
So that's all in favor? All right,
Aye.
approved. And Joel, welcome. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you. It's nice to see everybody. Thank you for accommodating us. I think we had a little bit of miscommunication about what we were going to have for you today, but we have a couple of things to share with you. Let's see. First, I need to get my screen shared. So nothing terribly fancy here this morning. There we go. Okay, I'll do this. So we've got a couple of things. One is to give you sort of an update on what we're thinking, initial thoughts about parking. So we know it's always a hot topic, certainly of prime interest for the DDA. And we've made some observations, like we did with the last plan, on ways to improve and add parking spaces. So this is just sort of an overview. These things need to be refined. And if you have observations on these thoughts, we can you please share those with me. The other thing that I want to talk about is our public input. Our idea was to tentatively have a open house type workshop here before the Planning Commission meeting in November, which I believe is the 14th. So be thinking about that. And if that seems like a time that would work, you know, it would be the meeting, our planning commissions are at 7:30. So maybe sometime before that, maybe 4:30 to 6:30, 4:30 to 7. It could be a little bit earlier and give us a break in between, kind of open to that, but just seems like a good time that people are sort of coming here for other things, maybe anyway. So the idea is that we would, in our October update, go over more of the material. So I've got some things on that today. So we know that we've got a lot of issues with parking. Over our overarching comment is that we've got a lot of public spaces mixed in with private spaces, and that can be confusing to visitors who come into the downtown area. We want to make sure that we are gaining spaces that make sense to people and that people feel comfortable wherever they're parking and feel like they can find their way around once they get here. So we've noticed a couple of, let me just move this out of the way. 14 Mile Road is 80 feet wide before we even get to the sidewalks. So we know about some parking, the width that we have there, that we've got space for 45-degree parking on both sides, 2 travel lanes and 1 turning lane. If we look at those, and we'll send you all of this too, so that you can get a little bit more, dive into it a little bit more. I just wanted to give you the kind of tops of the waves here. So we have currently parallel spaces east of Main. We've got 26 on the north side and 35 on the south side, and then west of Main, 15 on the north side, 7 on the south. And then putting in those walkability distances. And that's going to be, I think, important for people to think about. A lot of times, you know this, when people come into any community, they want to park right in front of the shop that they intended to go to. But because we want people to walk along the sidewalks and explore other places that maybe they didn't even know were there, we don't mind if they park a little bit farther away. So what we need to do is make it easier for people to walk a little bit more, make it comfortable, and give them something to look at along the way to draw them down. So that's kind of a theme too to be thinking about. So we highlight the distance. How can we help people get over that distance? 1,000 feet, like it's not really, that's about 3 blocks. That's not that bad. And so getting people to kind of recalibrate their expectations. So if we reduce from 4 lanes plus the turn lane to 2 lanes, a boulevard, to 2 bays of 45-degree parking, we can get more spaces within, and just a little smidge of an increase, at least on the west side, of how far people are from the current space. So you can see that there. But that's a pretty good gain. So we've got more on the north side and the south side, and I'm toggling back and forth. So this is what we have now, and that's what we could potentially get. That's with no closures of existing driveways. So if we are able to do that and helping people get into those places, either through the back way or through shared access drives, we might be able to get more spaces. And so that's kind of an educational process too. But those are some potential. So that's pretty good. Looking at the northwest lot, just a minor reconfiguration there. Looking at what we have, it looks like we could do 5, there's 5 current parallel spaces, could become 10 45-degree spaces if we kind of reconfigure that a little bit. So again, that's cleaning things up, restriping a little bit, but also giving people good sense of what to do when they get there. Again, looking here just to, there may be some opportunities to gain spaces in the northeast lot, improve appearance and circulation. And then looking at Main Street parking, potentially adding in spaces, again, assuming that the existing driveways would remain, but there may be some opportunities if we close those to fill in those curb cuts with more parking spaces. So we've got that there. This is kind of what I'm thinking about. We talked about when we think about getting people around. So where they get to a place where they're parking, and there may be other places too. If we look at some of the side streets where, not in front of people's homes, but where the businesses sort of extend a little bit further. So it may be a block in from 14, it may be a block in from Main, but giving people some signage like, City Hall's this way, it's only 3 blocks. And it'll take you how many minutes to walk or ride your bike there. So giving people an idea of like, oh, 4 minutes, that's not that far. I could do that. That's not a big deal. And so helping people see like what that really means to them on a practical level. So those are some of the highlights. I think that was it for, yeah, well, and then wayfinding. Also thinking of things like curb extensions and bulb out, so making it easier for people to cross the street. So again, we can give people all kinds of parking spaces, but we want them to feel comfortable parking there. We want them to be safe, and we want them to feel like it's just not that big of a deal to walk a couple of blocks to the destination they were going to, because it's such a pleasant environment, and who knows what else they might see when they get there. So that's kind of, bless you. That's kind of our highlights of some of the things that we're thinking about in terms of parking, that those things will all be refined. And then if anybody has any questions or comments or thoughts on that.
No, I think that was great.
Okay, good. We'll keep working on that and come up with some other things. So the next little chunk again is looking at public input. So again, having a public workshop in person, but also making all this information available online so that if folks can't come to the meetings, that they still have the same opportunities to give their input as they would if they were here. This is a really busy slide, but a couple of the topics that we wanted to talk about. One of the topics was art. So, the DDA has talked about and has promoted art downtown for a really long time. And we wondered if there was any interest in the DDA to really fold a public art plan into the downtown master plan. Asking the community questions. You're already smiling, so I'm going to wait for you to tell me what you're thinking. What is public art? Why is it important downtown? How accessible is it? How accessible should it be? What kind of diversity do we want to see in terms of our art? What then building a vision and goals for that, and then thinking about funding options. And I just threw those statistics up because they're fairly current, and they do talk about the importance of arts in our communities. Thoughts?
I'm all for public art. I'm laughing honestly because I'm thinking of a project that was a concept that was brought up and then the possibility of that. And I'm also thinking of the art that currently exists and how no matter what art is, you have people who are like, that is the worst thing I've ever seen. Why is that here? So ensuring that we have a variety of art that would appeal to multiple people. That's all. And of course, funding is key on all of these projects.
Yeah.
But of course, in favor.
What other thoughts?
I think this is something we probably have to sit and talk about.
Yeah.
Other than at a meeting. Yeah.
Right. So just kind of maybe getting some ideas. Is the DDA supportive of asking questions about public art in our open house information?
Oh, I think so.
Okay.
And we've been working on guidelines. Valerie and I have been
Yeah.
looking at mural guidelines and things that need
Perfect.
to be set up. So
Yeah.
those are all things that are kind of in the background, ready to things we know we need to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. So then maybe this including it into the downtown plan will give that a little bit more structure and support, which I think is good. And just as a side note, like the point about sometimes people think art is like they look at something and they're like, what? But that's all part of it, right? That's part of getting the conversation going. Sometimes we like it, sometimes we don't, but we frequently will remember it and remember where it was. It can be a landmark. It can be like, oh, it's that weird structure on the corner, to help people get through a community. So, and things don't necessarily have to stay there forever either. Some of that can be temporary and moving, and that lends to that sense of vibrancy that you have in the community where things might change every time you come into town. Looking at building heights is another question. We wanted to ask the DDA if you would like us to ask this in the community. So if you'll remember, for those of you who were there in 2015, we asked about maximum building height and we talked about 3, 4. I think we did up to 5. No, I guess we only did 4 stories. I think then the DDA was like 4 is good. We don't need to go any higher than that. And then we asked some visual preference questions in our survey and in our workshops that we had then. And we tended to get more support for 3 stories, but have that 3rd floor setback from the 2nd floor. And we see that with ACE redevelopment. It's exactly what the master plan called for and what the community said that they would support. Is there any interest or need to allow buildings to be taller? Is that something that we want to ask? And we're not necessarily promoting that. We're just throwing it out there as this is something we talked about before. Is there any interest in talking about it again?
And I think it definitely needs to be a discussion.
I agree. Yeah, I think it came up last time we met too.
Okay.
We met earlier before we kicked off the whole master plan. And
Yeah.
everybody was still happy with the.
Also, there's like a survey floating around right now. It does ask this question on there. I think you're actually sponsoring it.
Yeah.
It's the city master plan survey.
Okay.
overall.
Right.
How is that going? Are there a lot of responses or?
I think so. I don't have the number that we've gotten on
We
that yet,
shared it on
but
our
yeah,
socials, so
good.
hopefully
Thanks.
that helps. Yeah.
Perfect. So again, more questions on that specific to downtown. One of the other things that we talked about in 2015 was expanding the downtown boundary to include the north side of Jefferson. So the DDA and the Planning Commission kind of wanted to include that in, but when we presented that to City Council, that was a no-go. So when we finished up that plan, we said, well, let's just park that idea and talk about it the next time that we do a plan update. And so that's what we're doing now. Is there any interest in doing that or asking if we should expand that? The reason for that was to potentially allow for some more depth on the south side of 14 Mile, west of Main, kind of like we do a little bit more on the north side, where there may be some more opportunities for redevelopment if we scooch that boundary down a little bit more. What are your thoughts on that? Is there any interest in that? Is that
I think
just
that was the whole idea behind the core residential.
right? But that's different than
I
expanding.
know. And if we expand the DDA, we're not expanding the TIF, we're just
Right.
expanding the DDA.
Right.
Which really just, I don't know.
Well, for zoning purposes, then you would allow for that development to happen.
If you plan on changing it from core residential,
That's the question.
I know the residents weren't in favor of that.
Okay.
When we talked about it before.
Right, but the DDA did support it back in 2015. That was an idea that we had talked about expanding. So we're just seeing if that was anything that we wanted to talk about again.
So if that were to I mean, if we were to move forward with that, the intention would be that would lay the foundation for the zoning change, potentially when we revisited our TIF.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily have
It
anything.
really has nothing to do with the
No.
tip. It's really
No, I
just-
know,
Right.
but I mean, things that we do now affect 10 years down the road. So it would be laying the foundation for the things that would happen later.
It could in the sense that if you gave more opportunity for redevelopment on 14 Mile, those parcels that are in the TIF, that redevelopment, that would be a capture that you would maybe see. And that would maybe be increased over what you might have now, given the shallower depths of those properties. So it's just something else for discussion, but it wouldn't change your TIF boundary. It would just only change the zoning that associates with what can be developed there and within and on the other side of it.
Sure. And the obvious pushback is people live there now
Right.
and they don't want to see their properties sold or their neighbor's property sold and redeveloped.
Right.
Which was the whole idea behind the core residential, to allow some development using it as a commercial space, a business, as long as it stayed looking like the neighborhood.
Yeah.
As part of the background.
Right.
But
And I think,
that section wasn't looped into the core residential boundary when we changed the zoning.
What was the question?
is it, I think
Was
it is
that
core
little
residential.
strip-
Isn't
It is
it?
core
Yeah, it's
residential.
Oh,
core residential.
it is. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think the vision in 2015 or the initial thoughts and the concepts of it were that the development would be facing, and zoning ordinances can be directed and refined to make sure that happened, but that the buildings would front on 14 Mile and that the extra space in the back might just be parking for that development because there's just not enough really in that shallow frontage. That frontage would be on Jefferson with the maybe 2-story buildings with a setback, that would be facing 14 Mile, but that this extra area would be available for parking. That's still something that can be modified without even necessarily incorporating that as part of the center core, but it's a question that I guess we wanted to ask again.
I think it's worth, discussing.
It doesn't mean we have to do it. If you just ask it again, because we did it before.
Yeah, I think it's worth discussing.
14 Mile reconfiguration. So this is obviously a much larger topic. But as you know, in particular, if you're coming in from the north end, driving south as you get to 14 Mile and Main, those 2 lanes there are really confusing. 14 Mile, could be some opportunities to really improve this intersection. So we thought about creating a couple of options to show to see what kind of support we could get for that. So that's kind of maybe an easier one to think about, but not to do. And I think, and that's it. Yeah. So again, potential workshop, November 14th, maybe 4:30 to 6:30, where we would come back for your next meeting and show you more about the questions that we thought we would ask and the materials that we would have available at that meeting. And that way we're all on the same page before we present it to the public. So anything else that you've discussed that you want to make sure that we highlight in our questions or presentation materials to the community when we do that?
I think, is it like more defined, like the art, like what kind of art? I think in the last master plan, there was questions about different types of art, from like light art and other art. Is it going to be broken down like that again, or?
We can, if you want to get into the specifics of it. As we just used those as examples, like we used the live wall in one of the examples of in the alley. We, I think, had some light things that we had included in there. I don't know that we did a lot on murals in that, but you have had murals. And as you said, you're working on those guidelines. So I think those would be good things to ask too.
I think when we had the workshop before this whole started, when we all kind of met as a committee, that there was a lot of input then. There was a lot of things that, and to do that again would
Yeah.
probably be a good idea before.
For what?
Yeah, any input is great. I mean, there's
Mhm.
like 4 people out here today.
Yeah.
So any input is great.
Good. All right. Well, we'll get some things together. We'll work with Joan between now and the next meeting and kind of refine that too. And then when we come back in October, we'll have more of a solid plan for what we're going to do.
Right.
All right. Just wanted to give you that update. All
Thank
right.
you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Right. Director report.
I can start out with some really good news. I heard from Grand River Brewery yesterday, and they have their license approval.
Nice.
Yeah. So we just want to mention that we got State Rep Sharon McDonald, their office stepped in. And I think that did kind of give a little bit of a prod because things started moving again when they were not getting answers at all. So we do appreciate that help, and so does he. So Justin is looking forward to possibly, planning on looking at getting ready by the holidays to be open.
Nice.
So very excited to see that corner building occupied again. We are still awaiting the development plan submittal for the Burger King site, but that's looking very hopeful. The new dining room is open and quite successful by the lines that we see at Nori. Downtown Charlie's is now open Thursday and Friday evenings with a seafood menu. Met with the realtor for 29 South Main, which is the empty space that was available next to the yarn stop, and was informed that we are soon welcoming a florist at this location, which is awesome because we don't have one in Clawson anymore. So that's going to be just a great boon to the downtown. Still available for lease is the former Triple Thread at 25 West Main, 14 Mile. The same construction commercial projects in and around the downtown continue. Broadway Square units there. I've sent out on our last newsletter the link to anyone interested in leasing. 400 South Main, the work still is going on there, which is potentially going to be a brewery, new brewery. Let's see, Clawson Manor is continuing on schedule, and they expect their exterior to be completed in late fall. So things are moving around in town, moving on. Our 2024 our tech visit update, which is what Joe just gave us, our tech visit funds went from Main Street, went towards the updated downtown master plan. On other grants on the pedestrian crossing signal update, the Hawk signal that goes in down by Florence and East 14 Mile, AEW is now able to get the repair started for the signal that is on the island that got damaged when it was hit by a car. And once that's done, then they can get the rest of the work done and get that signal out. On the alley artwork, Miss Dig has been called to mark the location, mark the site. And once that's done, that artwork can go up. So glad to see that. It's been an ongoing thing. And Dennis, they talked to you about locks. Josh talked to you about
Yeah, I heard of
locks.
them.
So the artwork will be able to hold locks that you can decorate, hang, similar to other sites. The bridge on the Seine in Paris is one thing I can just think of offhand, but it allows for the public to participate and add something to the artwork. On other updates, we've got trash pickup and municipal dumpster enclosures continue to remain an issue. We're going to be scheduling a meeting with business owners to get answers from them on their experiences and needs so that we can begin a strategic plan and we'll be forming a subcommittee to tackle this problem. On other news, the city master plan, as Dennis mentioned, and Jill, is on the city website and has been sent out by email. So there's a QR code there. There's postings around in City Hall and the library and other places. So hopefully the people will take part in that. I am meeting with SEMCOG today to set an agenda for an upcoming meeting. So things that Jill talked about are things that we've talked about in that traffic and parking committee. And it has taken a little while to get SEMCOG back, have the timing available to get started again, but we'll set an agenda today and then get started and be able to meet and talk these things over, make recommendations. That's it. That's all I've got.
All right. City manager report.
Morning, everyone.
Morning.
Just a couple of things, and a couple were already alluded to today. The master plan survey is live, as Joan referred to a few minutes ago. We've got that online. We've also got flyers at each city hall building or municipal building with a QR code to do that. We're working on getting some hard copy surveys available just because we know there's a large portion of our community that would prefer to take the hard copy survey. So we're hoping to have that out by some point this week. And then we don't have an end date for the survey yet. We're trying to make sure we get as many responses as possible. So we're probably looking sometime in October. The other item that we have coming in early October is we're tentatively planning on having a joint workshop between the City Council, DDA Planning Commission, and Zoning Board of Appeals. That workshop is just intended to kind of do like a whole master plan kickoff with all the boards on the same page. That way we have an opportunity to share everything, kind of what's going on. The tentative dates for that are Tuesday, October 10th at 6 p.m. before the Planning Commission meeting, and then Wednesday, October 11th, probably around 7:30 p.m. kickoff. And so the intent with that is to have two available dates for people to attend, with the discussion content being the same. That way, if one meeting fits someone's schedule better, they can just attend one instead of both. So that's the tentative plan for that joint workshop right now.
Can you say those dates again?
Absolutely. And again, they're penciled in right now. So we're trying to, figure out the details, but October 10th at 6 o'clock, and that's a Tuesday. And then the Wednesday, October 11th, that's 7 or 7:30. That's all I have.
Awesome.
Thank you.
You so much. All right, projects and committee updates with Diane Clausen. We've got the pumpkin crawl coming up, as well as the trick or treasure. That'll be on the Saturday, the 28th, the weekend right before Halloween. Pretty good participation so far from the local bars and restaurants. So the trick or treasure stuff will go out today to generate some interest in that. And yeah, that's about all. The alley.
We always need volunteers for events.
Always.
Just,
Do we plan to use the beacons again?
We have them. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can we cross train a little bit on running them, just in case? Because I was thinking about that. I'm like, oh shoot, we're gonna have to get all that stuff loaded again.
Yeah.
You kind of want to make sure somebody else also knows how to do it.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Great.
When are you available typically, Val?
Right now, I'm feeling very flustered because September's been so busy for me. So that's like looking ahead to October. I think it's gonna clear up and it'll be fine, but yeah.
Okay.
I mean, like on the 28th, I should be fine, but
Okay, and let us know what your dates are, and we can get together and go over the beacons and
okay,
decide what we're doing with them too, so.
right. It adds a new layer of challenge with writing all the things, right? Like
Yeah.
figuring out how to do something different than last year.
Right, right.
Awesome.
Yeah, we can meet.
Thank you. Ally?
I think we covered it. Miss Dig is coming out. That's really all that's there right now.
All right. Thank you. Landscape and or landscaping and streetscape.
On landscaping, the volunteers are going to be purchasing fall mums for the planters. So as those plants that are in there kind of die off because of the cold weather, they'll be putting in some nice mums to get us through the next few months.
All right. Right. On new business, just actually want to welcome Joe to the board.
Thank you.
Joe, thank you. Any other new business? All right. Board comment?
Actually, sorry, maybe this is new business. I was gonna propose a date if we should meet, if anybody's interested in doing like an organization committee meeting to look at, we talked last month about if we should do like an annual type survey and start that process of loading all of our contacts into the new management software. So I kind of want to pull that all together. So I did write down a date for that. So potentially, I guess if it works for the Beacons, we could meet the same day that I have October 4th or October 5th. That's a Wednesday or Thursday, if anybody's interested. And I can send that out in the email too
Okay.
and start that conversation. I looked at some like Michigan Main Street resources behind, organization committee and some examples of surveys, sort of internal DDA type surveys. So I have kind of an outline of sections that I think are important to touch on. But I'd like opinions and comments, so.
For like past surveys and stuff, how many responses do we get on average, you know?
I think you're lucky overall if you get 30%.
Yeah, and this specifically, I think that's an important question because we want to reach those within our district, like the business owners and people that maybe aren't involved. So I think we'll have to have some strategy behind
Okay.
how to properly get it in front of everybody and easy enough, because I think to Joan's point, small business owners are often overloaded with running their business, right? So.
Yeah.
Right. Public comment?
Hi,
Kind of really public.
Annika Norris with Main Street, Oakland County. So this is a little overdue. So back when we did our main event awards at the Strand Theater in Pontiac, this year we decided that it was really important to take a look at our managers and the service that they had given. And we realized that we had well over, I think it's like 150 or 160 years of service by all of our managers who are on the Main Street. And typically that main event really focuses on board members, on volunteers. We don't really focus on all the work that the managers do. So we wanted to give a service award, and Joan was unable to make it. And this year's been a little bit crazy. So I'm finally here in September, sorry. But Joan has, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's 14 years of service to the DDA here in Clawson, and it's really important to recognize that. And it's a big commitment. And I think one thing that a lot of people maybe don't realize is how difficult the job can be and how much it takes the directors to do. And it used to be an average of 2 to 5 years for a director role because what was that? If that. Yes, because of how difficult the job is. And I have to say, for 14 years in one place and doing amazing things is really awesome. And to have that consistency for your board is pretty cool as well. And so Joan, thank you for your service
Thank
to
you.
making Clawson so awesome and our county even better. And so I wanted to present you with
how nice.
Guavic Kyle.
I did not do that. Award. Very nice. Thank you, Monica.
Very nice. Thank you.
Oh, that was unexpected. I never did that.
Any other public comment? All right, do I have a motion to adjourn? Second,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Thanks.
The update on our
Off to the races now.